Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeons solo video. In today's episode, we'll be using Cinq Association Sinclair. Being one of Sinclair's better identities, as well as having access to an evade skill, makes him a very good solo unit. His main gimmick is around growing stronger the faster he is than an enemy, which can result in some honestly pretty absurd rolls, with his skill 2 sometimes rolling better than most egos. There's nothing else to really say about this identity. He hits hard, goes fast, and is kind of a little tanky. Almost nothing can stand in his way. Our support passives for this run have a little bit of personality to them. We use both of the other Cinq identities for extra clash power and damage if we get Pride Resonance, and have Blade Lineage E Song as well as Captain Ishmael for extra poise generation. Base Faust is there too, as she's one of her only support passives that Sinclair can actually use. For starting ego gifts, we choose the cigarette holder and the old wooden doll, picking the flat-broke gamblers as our first floor. We find coffee and cranes along the way, which means that our ego resources are of no issue for the rest of the run, seeing as Sinclair actually has a lust skill. Being fatal to slash damage, this floor is a little tricky, but thanks to fueling Lantern perfectly, we always have enough resources to use it whenever our health gets a little too low. I choose to use it more than a little liberally, even though, thanks to Chef Ryoshu's healing passive, more than one use is unnecessary. Aside from them doing slash damage, this fight's nothing to really write home about. Sinclair's damage output is absolutely absurd, and keep in mind this is before we have any ego gifts boosting it. Granted, it is only the first floor, so it's always going to be boosted by a little bit. We take the 4-leaf clover as our reward and pick up Sticky Muck as a bonus before choosing the Unconfronting as our second floor. If I ever have an opportunity to fight Cromer with a Sinclair identity, I will always take it 100% of the time. At the shop we buy Ornamental Horseshoe and Devil's Share. With nothing else going on for this floor, we enter into Cromer's fight. As everyone knows, the only way to solo Cromer is by corroding on turn 3 to avoid her Gaze's insta-stagger effect. This means that you either need to fuel an ego perfectly or have an ego resource generating gift before you go into the fight, something that we have both of. Once the corrosion is finished, she needs to be either staggered, or you need to have enough damage to stagger her the next turn, as she will inflict Gaze a second time. While we don't stagger her with the corrosion, we do have enough damage after to stagger her, negating the second Gaze. It's a simple matter taking out the rest of her health, triggering the transition to her second phase, which is always easier than her first. By nature of it being second means we easily have all of our skill slots, which absolutely skyrockets our DPS. Her second phase also doesn't have any real significant gimmick that you need to worry about, resulting in us defeating it in only a single turn. Our reward for this is the Stone Tomb as well as Phlebotomy Pack. The next floor we choose is Piercers and Penetrators, where we fuse Finifugality and Emerald Elytra. Nothing really happens on this floor as we easily make it to the boss against the Alleyway Watchdog. The main difficulty of this fight for evade identities boils down to RNG, as its constant voltage skill has the potential to roll a 15. Unfortunately for him, Sinclair is not an identity who fits into that category, allowing him to evade its max roll no problem. The rest of this fight really doesn't matter after turn 1. Sinclair can easily clash with every attack from the Watchdog, and his absurd damage can stagger every part with only 1 or 2 attacks. This unrelenting offensive is more than enough for us to defeat the Watchdog before even gaining all of our skill slots. We receive the Pendant of Nostalgia as our reward, and feeling overconfident, head into the Evil Defining as our next floor. Here we buy an extra Skill 3 and Phantom Pain, gaining Nebulizer before heading into the fight against Ahab and her cronies. Either of the Pequod crew or Gas Harpoon would have been no problem. Evades absolutely destroy Ahab, and with Sinclair being the best 1v1er in the world, he can easily stagger Queequeg once she begins protecting Ahab. He finishes her off once she is staggered, ensuring that Ahab no longer has anyone to hide behind. Once we have all of our skill slots, we no longer have to be on the defensive and prove to Ahab just how weak she truly is. We take the Endorphin Kit as our reward and get painkillers as a bonus. Not that we'll need it. For whatever reason, I choose not to fight against Dongrang as the final boss and pick Unbound Wrath for our final floor. Here we get an extra skill 2, Imposed Weight, and Eclipse of Scarlet Moths. We fuse Downpour in an attempt to get clear Mirror Calm Waters, thank you 10% chance, and head into the final boss against the Brazen Bull. Just like the Alleyway Watchdog, the Bull rolls high enough to be able to beat our evade. We have to reset a few times to be able to survive the first turn without being staggered, but soon enough RNG rolls in our favor as we end up evading all of his attacks. With our evade still not being able to consistently beat the Bull's rolls, we target it to the only skill that it can consistently beat. But thanks to the sanity reduction from Overflowing Sorrow, we miss a roll and get staggered. Thanks to our Lord and Savior painkillers, we managed to somehow survive the stagger, only a little worse for wear. Being brought down to neutral sanity would likely be a death sentence against this boss for most identities, but Sinclair's absurd rolls are more than enough to ignore this completely and still win every clash. This brings our sanity back to max, and now with all of our skill slots, the rest of the fight is trivial. Was this the hardest fight in the run? Yes, definitely. The Bull has just as absurd rolls as Sinclair does, though Sinclair's are just slightly better. It's the evades on the first couple of turns that's the real problem.
아직 모자라. 여러분들, 왜 그렇게 뒷걸음질을 하시는 건가요?
And that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 4 hard with Cinq Association Sinclair. He is an absurdly powerful identity and debatably one of Sinclair's best. With crazy damage, clash power, and fueling Lantern perfectly, there is very little that he can't do. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be using this fine stranger. Goodbye.